Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone in today's class for the third intermediate grade. Our textbook is Sober Goal 6 and today we will cover culture shock writing. This lesson will be presented by me, teacher Mazen Harbi, so let's begin. Our objectives in today's lesson, we hope that at the end of this lesson you will be able to first write an email about cultural differences and use the verb use to with gerund and infinitive. Before we do this, let's make quick revision on our last lesson. Last lesson we have a reading lesson, which was a very interesting reading text. It's called A Fish Out of Water, and we have divided this lesson into different parts. The first one where we asked you about what problems do you think people usually or have adapting to a different culture or different life. And we have talked about people when they travel to different countries, what kind of problems they may face when they trying to adapt, trying to be used to this type of new culture or a new country or a new life. And also in our reading text, we have talked about this, and also we have divided these stages into 5 different stages. The first one was the adjustment phase, and where we said that in that phase, people try to adapt as much as possible to the new experience they are having, and also the emptiness or rejection phase, and the conformist phase, and also the assimilation phase or complete adjustment and reverse culture shock. So these are the different phases and different stages that we have read about in our last lesson. Not only this, but also after reading, we had 2 exercises about vocabularies and also about some of the information that we have read in this text to just to test ourselves with the comprehension, whether we understand some of the information that were mentioned in this text. And also with the discussion, we had 2 important questions, and I asked you and we gave you some of the information that may help you when you're trying to discuss this with a family member maybe or a friend. And we said the first question for discussion was, have you ever lived for a period of time in another country? What was your experience like, and did you get any cultural shock? Did you get any culture shock or reverse culture shock? So this was a very important question, and we said that when you travel to different country, of course you're going through a different experience and different culture. And so what did you do at that time? And so did you have what we call a cultural shock, where you're having a trouble trying to adapt to this new culture, or the vice versa? And also the second question we had, which is, what experiences of culture shock have people that you know had when they visited another country? So not only about you, but also about people that you may know who are traveling to or have traveled to different parts of the world. So what kind of experiences that they may had when they travel to another country? So we can discuss about this, so we can relate more to the topic of our reading text. Not only this, but also with the project, I ask you to think of advice to give to travelers to your country. Make a list of tips to help them fit into the local culture. So we have talked about, imagine that when you're traveling to different country, you will face, of course, a cultural shock, and you will experience new things that you're not experienced it before here in your country. So let's try to put yourself in that place, or if you are the host of people who are coming to your country. So what are the tips or what are the advice that you would give them, trying for them to try to fit in our country? So they try to at least reduce the cultural shock they may experience. So that was an interesting project, and I hope that you have come up with different tips and different pieces of advice for the new travelers or for the coming travelers in our country. Now, as for our lesson today, I would like you please to open your books on page 66. Open your books please on page 66. On page 66, the first exercise we have is that we're going to read quotes about culture and travel, and we're going to discuss what each quote mean. So here we have, as you can see, on page 66, you will see different quotes, and what we need to do is that we're going to read each quote and try to understand each one of them. Not only this, but with each quote, I will give you a culture notes about the writer or the author of that quote. So it may help you to understand the background of such quotes. So the first quote here we have is from Marcus Garvey. Marcus said, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." So, who is Marcus Garvey? Marcus Garvey, he was born in 1887 and has died in 1940. He was a Jamaican political leader, publisher, and journalist who advocated the rights of the African people. So he is a very well-known leader and also a political one and a publisher. So let's read his quote again and let's try to understand what does he mean in his quote. So he said that a people without the knowledge of their past history and their origin and the culture, like a tree without roots. So it's difficult, actually, we can see a tree without its root. So he has he's trying to make the tree looks like a person who has no knowledge of his past or no knowledge of his history or origin. So this something is not right. This is something that it's difficult to see, especially when we're talking about people. So, or when we're talking about trees. So it's very difficult to see a tree without its root. He said the same when we see people with no knowledge of their history, origin, or their culture. So this is what Marcus Garvey talked about in this quote. And you can also come up with different ideas about this quote. So try in groups, maybe with a family member or a friend of yours, to gather and read this quote and come up with some of the things that you may understand from this one. Now, as for the second quote we have from Ralph Waldo Emerson, so we're going to read it and then we'll have different or additional notes about this author. So, though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not. So, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was born in 1803 and he has passed away in 1882. He was an influential American writer, a poet, and lecturer. So from this quote and the words that he used in this quote, we can understand that he was a poet. So let's read this quote again and try to come up with ideas and try to understand the meaning of that quote. So he said that, yes, we do travel the world over to find the beautiful, and we must carry it with us or we find it not. So it means that if we cannot find the beauty inside ourselves, no matter where we go, no matter what are the places that we visit, we won't see it or we won't see the beautiful things around us, because the first place that we should look for beauty in it is ourselves or among ourselves. This is a great quote from Ralph Waldo, and you can think of different ideas about a similar quote. Now, a third quote we have is from Clifton Fadman. So let's read this quote. When you travel, remember that a foreign country is not designed to make you comfortable. It is designed to make its own people comfortable. So who is Clifton Fadiman? Clifton, he was born in 1904 and he has passed away in 1999. He was an American author, editor, and a popular radio and television personality. So he was famous in both in television and in radio. So let's read his quote again and try to understand some of the information that he intended behind this quote. So he said, when you travel, remember that a foreign country is not designed to make you comfortable. It is designed to make its own people comfortable. So when you travel to a different country, what does he mean here is that try to accept their customs, try to accept the culture, try to fit in this culture as much as possible. And also we have another famous quote. It says that when in Rome, do as the Romans. So you try to fit in that new culture or in that new country. So just to have the best, a better time and not to struggle with your time being there. So this is regarding this note. Now let's move on to another note from Paulo Coelho. So he says that culture makes people understand each other better. And if they understand each other better in their soul, it is easier to overcome the economic and political barriers. But first, they have to understand that their neighbor is, in the end, just like them, with the same problems and the same questions. So let's read more about Paulo. So he was born in 1947. He's a Brazilian novelist whose bestseller has sold more than 65 million copies and has been translated into at least 56 different languages. So he is a very well-known author and he has books that were bestseller all around the world. So let's read his quote again. He said that culture makes people understand each other, and if they understand each other, it is easier to overcome the economic and political barriers. But first, before all of this, they have to understand that their neighbor is in the end just like them, with the same problems and the same questions. So what does he want to say here is that we need to accept changes. We need to accept differences between us and people in different countries. Not only this, even with between us and our neighbors. So we all have differences. We all have, as he said, we all have things that we don't like about each other, but at the end we need to understand it, we need to accept it, and all of us have, we are all the same. We have the same problems, the same questions sometimes. So just to make you feel better or to make you feel comfortable, it's good to accept all of these changes or differences between you and the others. So the last quote we have here is from T.S. Eliot. He said that we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. So additional notes about the author. So he was born in 1888 and has passed away in 1965. He was a poet, a writer, and a literary critic. He was born in the United States but immigrated to England in 1914. So he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1948 for his outstanding contribution to present-day poetry. So let's read his quote again and try to elicit some of the information and the meaning behind this quote. So he said, we shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. So he said that no matter how much we explore, this is an endless journey. We'll keep exploring, and we'll keep exploring new things and know more about ourselves, that sometimes when we know more, we feel that we started or we reach where we started at the beginning. So here when he said that we arrive where we started. So this is an endless journey. We keep reading and reading. We keep exploring different things. So this is a human nature. So all of these quotes that we have discussed, all of them may have different meanings than different meanings and different ideas. So we can come up with more of these. Now, let's move on to the second part of our lesson today, which is the writing corner. So the first rule we have in our writing corner is that we usually use used to plus gerund or noun to mean that to be familiar with something. For example, when we said that I'm not used to eating with chopsticks, so it isn't easy for me, I'm used to eating with a fork or spoon. So we usually use the verb used to with either a gerund or a noun that to indicate that I'm used or I am familiar with something. That, for example, when I say I'm used to drive every morning, so this is something I was familiar with, but now I have or I'm not used to it anymore. So when there is there is something that you used to do it before, but not now, we use the verb used to. So just to talk about the things that you used to do before or you are familiar to do before, but not now. So here we have another example. I am used to getting up early. I always get up at 6 a.m. I am used to walking to work because I live near the school. So this is also another thing that I am familiar with. I am familiar with doing in the past. So which is, I am used to getting up early. So how can we form sentences when we want to talk about the things that we are familiar to do or we are familiar with before, which is we use used to plus a gerund. So as we can see here we use used to, and this is a gerund. The same goes here. Here we use used to, and here we use a gerund. And again, when can we use such form? We use such form when we talk about something that we are familiar with before, but not now. So the second rule we have is when we use get used to plus gerund and noun. And what does that mean is to become familiar with something. For example, when I said, I am getting used to some of the local customs. So before, in rule number 1, we said that if there is something in the past that you used to do, but not now, we use a verb to be, I was or I am used to playing or getting up in the morning. But when you are, for example, and imagine this, when you go to a different country and you stayed there for maybe a week or a month or maybe a year, and with time you are getting used to some of the local customs there. So you are getting used to. It's not like something that you are familiar with before, it's that you're trying to adapt, now you're trying to gain some of the customs of that country. So here we can use get plus used to in that form or in that term. So again, the difference between get used to and verb to be with used to is that when we use verb to be with used to, like I am used to be, or he is used to be, is that when we talk about something that we were familiar before and familiar with before, but not now. But when we use get used to, it means that now we are trying to adapt. Now we are trying to gain some of the customs, some of the knowledge about the new place we have experienced. And the third rule we have is using used to with infinitive refers to an action that repeatedly happened in the past but doesn't happen anymore. So the negative form is didn't use to. So let's see here example. So we use used to with also infinitive to talk about things that we used to happen before but not now. So for example, we used to walk to school. We use to walk to school. So this is something that was or has happened before in the past, but now we didn't use to take the bus. So another action at that time is that we didn't use to take the bus. Also another example, I used to go to bed late at night, but now I go to bed early. I used to go, so this is also another example, using used to plus infinitive to talk about something that happened before but not now. And the third one, I used to read a lot, but now I don't have time. Sorry, so when there is something that you used to do before, like I used to read a lot, this is used to plus infinitive, but you're not doing it anymore. So we use used to plus the infinitive. So now let's move on to the other exercise, exercise number B. Complete the sentence with gerund or infinitive of the word in parentheses. So here we have 8 sentences. What we need to do is that we're trying to complete these sentences either with gerund or infinitive. And how can we use the words? We can see the words here in the between those parentheses. So let's read each sentence and try to choose whether we should write this verb in gerund or in infinitive. So the first one, the people here are used to stand in line at the bus stop. The people here are used to stand in line in the bus at the bus stop. So here we need to understand first. Are we talking about something that happened before and but not now, or was repeatedly happened, or that's something that only happened once before? So if it's only familiar with or happened only once before, so here we're going to use gerund. So the sentence will be, or the answer will be, the people here are used to standing in line at the bus stop. Let's try number 2. It isn't easy to get used to blank live in a new cultural environment. So it isn't easy to get used to live in a new cultural environment. So what do you think? Should we say it here living or to live? The answer is living. It isn't easy to get used to living in a new cultural environment. Number 3, we are not used to the weather blank be so cold and rainy. So we're not used to the weather be so cold and rainy. So what should we answer here? Should we use the gerund of the verb be or the infinitive? Very good. The answer is gerund, which is being. So let's move on to number 4. She used to blank drink coffee in the morning, but now she drinks tea. She used to drink coffee in the morning, but now she drinks tea. So here, when we're talking about something happened in the past with another action that didn't happen, so here we should use the infinitive. She used to drink coffee in the morning, but now she drinks tea. Number 5. He has gotten used to drive on the left side of the road. So here, when we're talking about something that we were familiar with, we should use gerund, something that we were familiar with, used to driving. Number 6, you may find it strange at first, but you will get used to eat the food. So here again, we're going to use gerund as well. Number 7, I had difficulty with the language at first, but I am used to speak it now. So here we're going to use gerund, but now I am used to speaking it now. And the last sentence, number 8, I didn't used to take a nap, but now I rest for an hour every afternoon. So here we're talking about something that we used to do, but not now. So here we're going to use infinitive. I didn't used to take a nap, but now I rest for an hour every afternoon. Now, the last part for our lesson today is that exercise number C. Imagine that you are staying in a foreign country. Write an email to a friend about the cultural differences you have experienced. Before you write, you may want to research the local habits, custom gestures, and cuisine, weather, and etc. So imagine that you're going to different country. Imagine that you're going to a different country, and what I need you to do is to write an email about that place. So, and when you going to write it, before you do this, try to make a quick research about what kind of the customs are there, and the gestures or local habits and cuisine. And when you, as we have learned before, when you're trying to write an email, you always start with a greeting. So just decide who is the person who is going to read your email, and start with phrases like, for example, Dear Ali or Hi Ali. And also after this, you try to organize your ideas. So talk about the first thing you experience in that country, and the second thing, and when you finish, you write a closing sentence, like for example, see you soon, or write back to me, and the signing, which is when you write your own name. When you write your own name. So this is a sample of the email that you should write about. So just remember to go through those 4 steps, and remember to do a research about that place. Before we finish, don't forget to check on your workbook on page 128, as we have more additional writing practice. So now we have reached the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.